Hello, this is Scott Conway with Mothers Raising Sons at mothersraisingsons.com. Of course, we're talking about attention deficit. Today, we're talking about entertainment. Now, I know we've talked about games. We've talked about television. And we're talking about some of these things that train the brain, condition the brain, limit what the brain is conditioned that it needs to do for the input to change. But here's something else. In order to pay attention, in order for something to capture your attention, one of the things that needs to be emotionally engaging. One of the reasons a child can have an attention deficit issue so strongly when it comes to schoolwork, where they can't seem to pay attention to the teacher for 5 minutes, but somehow they seem to be able to play their video game for hours at a time. Well, that tells you, first off, the good news is physiologically there's nothing wrong with the brain, because the brain is obviously capable of paying attention. It just doesn't seem capable of paying attention to things like school, or homework, or chores. It only seems to be able to pay attention to things like games and television and movies. Well, there's actually a reason for this, and the basic reason for this is that if something is emotionally engaging, it is very easy to pay attention to it. For instance, even for the average adult, if you're going to sit down and watch a movie, and you like the movie. To you, the movie is fun, it's exciting, it's engaging, it's scary, it's romantic, whatever kind of movie you like to go see. It could be a 2-hour movie and you will sit down for the whole 2 hours and you will enjoy that movie and you'll be paying attention to it. Now, on the other hand, if you have to sit down and listen to me lecture to you in a very boring tone of voice, and suppose now if you're a mother and you're raising a son and you're here to learn about mothers raising sons, and I do emotionally engage you, then you might be able to listen, but I'm not going to go 2 straight hours. But if I'm speaking in a fairly monotone voice, if I'm actually just have a book out and I'm just reading to you from the manuscript of the book and you're just following along in your notebook wondering, why is he reading this to us? How come I can't just read it myself and have him teach something that I can't just read? I mean, what's going on? You'll have a lot of trouble paying attention for 2 hours. Now, fortunately, I don't teach that way. But when I do teach, if you come to one of our Mothers Raising Sons retreats for the deep heart of parenting, you're going to get some engagement, you're going to get interaction, it's going to be emotionally engaging. It's like, I do that. So I'm not going to sit there and in a very boring, monotone voice read to you for 2 hours. I promise. But one of the things to keep in mind is that it would be hard to pay attention if I did that. It's hard for your child to pay attention. And the more the brain is trained that life is about entertainment, the more that's going to happen. Even by the time I was a kid, the television as a babysitter was becoming more and more common. And babies were growing up, and infants were becoming toddlers, and toddlers were becoming children, with this idea, the world comes to me, the world entertains me, it all comes to me. And then when they're not being entertained, when they're not being engaged, when suddenly mom's not playing with me or the television's not entertaining me, I don't know what's going on. Someone's got to entertain me. Someone's got to engage me. There's got to be something fun going on. And the more the brain is conditioned that life is about fun, life is about entertainment, the harder it is to pay attention to work. The harder it is to pay attention to school. The harder it is to actually get the things done I need to do, to read what I need to read, to listen to what I need to listen to learn what I need to learn, because I'm not being emotionally engaged, I'm not being entertained. And so many children these days, much more than in our generation, are growing up with this idea that life must constantly entertain them, that it is the job of life to engage me, that when I don't have something going on, it just drives me nuts. I can't stand in line at Disneyland. When I was a kid, I don't know when you were a kid, when I stood in line when I was a kid, guess what I did? I stood in line. I might have talked with my parents or talked with my friends or engaged in conversation with one of the other kids. Even as I was older, maybe I would take a clipboard with me and I would draw pictures. I would have to do something. Nowadays, people have their screen and they're sitting and the kids are playing a game that they can't even stand in the line for something cool without having to be entertained. Or taking a drive. When I was growing up, I was sitting in the back seat. If you wanted to be entertained, you'd play some kind of a game. One of the games we would play is, find a word that starts with the next letter of the alphabet, and you kind of get bogged down sometimes on Q and X and Z and your handful, and you see how far you can get and how long it takes looking at signs and reading things and looking at the back of cars and trying to find these letters. So you're engaging in the external reality. Well, it isn't nearly as entertaining as having something streaming on your pad, or playing a game that is emotionally engaging you because it's giving you this reward system constantly in life. So when our children learn that life is about entertainment, it's really hard for them to go without being entertained. And when they're not being entertained, it's very difficult to keep them engaged. And so again, just as with the other lessons, I'm not saying no television, no movies, no games. What I am suggesting is to just keep in mind the level of entertainment going on in the child's life. And let your children be bored from time to time. Let your children do things that doesn't engage them for them, and rather they have to go make their own fun. Or they have to engage in an external reality in a way so that they can enjoy themselves, and also so that they can learn how to learn. They can learn how to pay attention. Now, if you saw lessons on the real seen but not heard, that can be very helpful, just having the children around when adults are around and learning that it's not all about them. They don't get to just pipe up and instantly they're the center of attention. They can interrupt adults at any time they want, but to learn what it's like to see how adults do life, and that they can begin to hopefully absorb a little bit of that. Well, we're going to be continuing this set that we've been talking about television, we talked about games, we talked about the idea of entertainment. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about unplugging your kids. Not, obviously not permanently, because I'm not against all of these things, but how to get your children to limit what they do. And some of the things that we've actually went into. I had a mother actually chatting with me about a problem she was encountering with her boy just recently, and I'm going to tell you basically what I told her. This is Scott Conway, Mothers Raising Sons, mothersraisingsons.com.